Welcome back to another episode of the Clear the Screen podcast. I am Melissa Deely.
And I am Billy Adme, and we're so excited to have a lovely guest today. Her name is Mardi Winder. We're so excited for you to be here, Mardi.
Thank you, Billy, and thanks, Melissa.
You are most welcome, and I just want to introduce you to the audience before we dive in. Mardi Winder is the go-to divorce coach for high-achieving individuals. She is dedicated to supporting people in taking control of their separation and divorce to reduce the emotional and financial costs of the process. Mardi offers over 30 years of experience helping women and men navigate the challenges of high-conflict, complex, and high-asset divorces. Mardi is an ICF and BCC executive and leadership coach, certified divorce, transition, and high-conflict divorce coach, and credentialed distinguished mediator in Texas. She founded Positive Communication Systems, LLC, and hosts the podcast The D Shift, Redefining Divorce and Beyond, and the Summit Series, Real Divorce Talks. Mardi is also a best-selling author, speaker, and trainer, and soon to have more qualifications to add to that very long list.
Thank you, Melissa. That was very long, wasn't it?
It was. No.
Too much stuff there. Adding timeline therapy, neurolinguistic programming, hypnotherapy. Oh, I love that you're part of our school, Mardi, because it's just going to add to all the amazing things that you are already doing and have been doing over the decades. Wow, so impressive. We just want to start first, Mardi. How did you get here? Tell us your story. How did you get from being just regular old beautiful Mardi to now I want to help women go through divorce? There's got to be a story behind that, and I really want to hear it.
Oh, well, Billy, I get asked this often, and every time I seem to tell it a little bit differently because you're in a different place as you're talking to different people. And I was thinking about this before I got on the podcast today. And, I came from a home where we didn't have, there wasn't conflict. My mom and dad were lovely people. We were a very cohesive family. We did things together. My dad was actually an RCMP officer. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She worked part-time at Eaton's. If you're from Canada, you know that store that no longer exists. My first job was actually at Eaton's as well. And my sister and I were both adopted. It was kind of that Norman Rockwell kind of family. And we really did a lot of things together. But we always knew my mom was sick. My mom had cancer and she had multiple surgeries. And she was actually one of the first people who went through radiation therapy when they originally started a new kind of radiation. And I don't know the name of it, but unfortunately, when they administered the radiation therapy, this was like back in 1962, they actually over-radiated her and actually caused severe scarring through her abdominal area. And which led to a lot of health complications all through her life, and unfortunately, a resurgence of the cancer. But, our family was very open about it. We talked about the fact that my mom had cancer and it was terminal. She did pass away when I was 17, but I don't remember feeling like kind of a victim at that point in time because my dad was really strong and we were prepared for that. I wasn't so prepared when my dad passed away 4 years later from a different kind of cancer, completely undetected until too late to do anything about. And so that was a little shocking, but still, I didn't feel victimized by it. I went, got my degree, taught school, got my master's, got married, and really thought I was doing great in that relationship. And then that all went south about 3 years into the relationship. And it wasn't bad. Again, there wasn't any violence or any abuse or anything like that. It was just we were good with each other. We should have stayed friends. We should have never got married, in my opinion. And through the divorce, what should have been really simple, we didn't have kids. It just became this really complicated, ugly, involving many different people, drama mess that I was so embarrassed about. I was trying to keep this all private and things are getting more and more public. And I just remember at that point in time, living on Victim Island. And I love that term that you all introduced me to, because I really it was everybody else's fault and oh, poor me. And why is this happening to me? I'm a good person. And, it's all his fault, which I now know absolutely not. But that's where I sat for a good few months until one of my friends finally said, you got to snap out of this. You are not, this isn't you. You're more resilient. You're stronger. You're better. So I started doing some work in this area and doing some reading and doing some learning. I dabbled kind of in NLP way back then when NLP wasn't really something a lot of people were talking about. I mean, this was 30 years ago. And I just got more and more interested in neuroscience and understanding emotions, how conflict evolves, how we can use communication to de-escalate conflict, and all of that. And through that, I think I moved from Victim Island to Solution City, as you would both say. And I really felt that I got very, very strong in who I was and what I needed to be. And then in the last 10 years, I've gone from the mediation executive and leadership coaching now to working with people going through divorce, because I really feel what I experienced is not abnormal. It's more the norm, especially for people that are high achieving and don't want their divorce. They don't want to make it a big drama. They just want to have an amicable solution. I think having that, my goal now is to really help support that. And that's why I think the training that I'm doing with y'all is going to be so fantastic.
Absolutely. It will. And, one of the modalities we teach timeline therapy is helping people heal trauma without talking about it, without having to put all the details on the table as we do when we go to talk therapy. Talk therapy is great for awareness. However, as you know, and as you're going to learn as you go through our program, is that when you talk about the trauma, you actually deepen the neurology. Sure. And what an amazing concept that you can heal trauma without talking about it.
Yes.
Right. And if we can do that with trauma, what else could we do that with? Right. And to bring that concept to even your clients, because I know, speaking, I'm a single mom, and speaking of going through, it was quite volatile at points, and I have very young children. And, it didn't need to be that complicated. And the system, unfortunately, makes it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be as well. And so it's just about empowerment. And I love that you're adding these tools now to be able to provide your clients with empowerment. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? Is people stand in their power. Because when you're in Victim Island, you're not in your power. When you're in you are in your power.
So that's why you were able to find your strength after your friend pointed out to you, hey, this isn't you, right? And thank goodness for friends like that, right?
Yeah.
That can pull you out of it when you're in the depth of, owning a lot of property on Victim Island. And because we don't see it ourselves, this is all happening outside of our awareness. And so initially we do need other people to point it out to us, and then, throw us the life ring to help us get out of it, show us the tools, show us the way, support us through it. And you said you were there for a couple of months. Kudos to you that it was only a couple of months.
It was probably longer than that, if I'm being honest. But you know what I found? It's really interesting when you were both talking. I was thinking, yes, it's great that I had a friend who kind of said, snap out of it. But there was a lot of people that were right there, happy to kind of keep supporting that. Like, you're right. You're such a good person. Well, this shouldn't be happening to you. You're right. He did. And even though they didn't really know what the relationship was, they were really excited to, like Melissa says, for me to be their neighbor over there on that island, because
those roommates, right?
Yeah. I think sometimes, when people see somebody thriving and making positive changes, lots of people don't like that. They really want people to stay at their space, their level, their comfort zone. And when you start making those changes, all of a sudden it gets uncomfortable for other people. And you have to be a courageous person to make those changes as well.
Absolutely. It's the crabs in the bucket syndrome, right? People get worried that you're going to leave them behind. And so out of love, again, unconsciously, they'll often call you back because they're worried you're going to leave them.
Right.
And then also people friends, they think they're helping you by supporting you, by agreeing with you. And that's being nice. It's not being kind. The being kind is recognizing that you are wallowing on victim island and that isn't you. And hey, snap out of it. And again, not everyone has the tools to even recognize that at this point, which is why it's our mission to get this message out. And we did a podcast earlier where the guest said, when we were talking about this, they said, you have a choice. You have a choice to stay on victim island and amplify your impact there by supporting other people in staying there, or to get yourself over to Solution City and amplify your impact there, bringing more people with you. And what is the choice that you want to make? And that's what's so key is it's a choice.
Yes. Yeah. And it all comes down.
It's a choice.
Yeah. It all comes down to your personal choice. Yeah. I love that. I love that somebody was talking like that because that really resonates with me.
Yeah. So Mardi, here's another question. How has your life or impact amplified since going through your hero's journey and acknowledging all that you have learned because of your story that you've been through and your hardships?
Well, I think I would like to think that I try to be authentic in everything that I do and every interaction I have with people. Part of my journey, I think, was to learn to be a little more vulnerable and talk about challenges that I was having and be a better listener. Like Melissa said, not just be that person. Oh yeah, poor you, you're right. But really to be kind and considerate, but give them a little bit of a, I don't want to say a challenge, but maybe a choice, to just help them as part of my coaching or even just interacting with people I know and care about is to ask them the questions so that they can see that there's more than one possibility. I think sometimes we get tunnel vision and we just see that there's one solution. And I think, in most areas of life, there's rarely just one choice or the other. There's always multiple ways to get to the solution. But how flexible are you? How willing are you to negotiate or to consider outside options? And I think that's what I do. I think that's how I amplify what I've learned and really try to support others that are going, whether it's divorce or anything else, changing jobs, dealing with the loss of a spouse or a loved one, the loss of a pet. I mean, there's so many things that come up where we could just get stuck or we can move forward. So I don't know, Billy, if I answered your question or I just kind of rambled there, but I think it's that asking the question so that people understand that there's a choice.
Right. Yes.
I would love for you, if you can, to share a story with how you've done that, potentially with a friend or a client, and the outcome of you showing them that there's a choice and where that led them. Do you have a story around that you can share?
I sure can. And this is one of my all-time, I don't know, it's just one of those memories in working with somebody. One of the first people I worked with as a divorce coach was a lady she was in her mid-60s at that time. And she had been in a relationship, in a marriage for, I think, 45 years about. She had got married very, very young, like 16 or 17. And this was not a good relationship. This was an emotionally abusive relationship. And she'd had a lot of, there was multiple, like 5 or 6 children involved spread out over the years. So she hadn't worked. She hadn't really done anything, but she had somehow during her time at home done some classes and managed to get things so that she had enough that she wanted to complete she thought that she could complete her master's degree and a PhD in about 6 years. That was her goal. But she was so concerned and so worried about well, this is my age and I need to save all my money and I just need to go be this little old lady and I need to sit around with other little old ladies talking about how sad we are that we don't have anybody to live out the end of our lives with. And we're going to be, alone, crazy cat ladies sitting on their porch knitting or something. And, we really talked about that. And we talked about, even though I didn't know timeline therapy at that time, we used a similar technique. Like, what would it look like if you were able to go back to school and get your degree and do all these things? What would you be doing that's different? Who would be around you? Who would be your biggest cheerleaders? Who would you be cheering on? And so we really talked through that. And we touched on that a few times. And I worked with her for a couple of months, I think about 3 or 4 months during the last part of her divorce. And I didn't hear from her for a couple of years. And this will be maybe about 4 or 5 years ago now, I get something in the mail out of the blue inviting me to her graduation for her PhD degree celebration. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but Zoom was available. It was on Zoom, so I was able to watch it virtually. And there was a physical transformation, not only that mental and empowerment transformation, but there was a physical transformation in the way she carried herself and presented herself. And she got her
how old was
PhD.
she? How old
I
was
think she was
that?
70. I think she was 73 when she finished her PhD.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's never too late to start, right? Again, we have these mindsets and programming around, you have to do this by this age and this by this age and this by this age. And then if you haven't done it, you've missed out. No.
Yes.
No, you haven't missed out. You can do anything at any time.
And it was amazing because all of her friends and even her adult children were telling her, no, don't waste your money, save your money. You need that for, your golden years sitting on the porch with the cats and the knitting, because you're not going to have enough money because nobody's going to hire you even. And now she has a thriving clinical practice. She's doing fantastic and she loves what she does. We stay in touch now. Every few months we'll, send a note or an email or hop on a Zoom call, and she's doing fantastic. So, but it really was in her mind that was her only option. She really didn't see anything else until she just put her mind to it. And then she was able to overcome all of that.
I love that you were the one that was able to open her mind to the fact that the possibilities were actually there, despite what she was being told in the environment that she'd been in.
Right. And her generation too, we tend to forget it wasn't until 1975 that women could do a lot of stuff like get credit cards and get loans and buy homes without a male signature or another family member. Until it was legally, they were, banks and financial institutes were required to enable that. That's not that many years ago.
I know.
It's easy. Literally.
Yeah, I was 12 when that happened. So.
Yeah. Wow. Good for her. And I love that story and love knowing that as you're working with your clients, that you're doing so much more than, just guiding them through a process.
Right.
Right. And that allows them to step into their new life in their power, which also has this beautiful ripple effect of the benefit of impacting their children if they still have children in the home. And that ripple effect is huge because navigating divorce is hard on kids. And if the person that's being coached by you is able to navigate it from that place of their power in a positive way for the children, the children can grow up to be healthy, thriving adults with potentially, 2 loving homes versus 1 unhappy home, which I know is what Billy says to her children.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
2 homes of light or 1 home of darkness, right?
exactly.
I'll need 2 homes of light any day.
And so their mental health is in a much better place and their outcomes in life are going to be far superior as a result. So the work that you do is so important because unfortunately there are so many divorces, and how can we navigate this in the smoothest way possible for all in a system that isn't designed to do so? So that's why your work is so important.
Right. Right. And I just, but I love the fact that she took this on. She could have just done whatever she thought that older women were supposed to do when they were on their own. But she said, no, I'm going to do this. She believed in herself. And I just wish I had the tools that I'm starting to accumulate now, because I think we could have moved that process a lot faster for her. But, yeah, I think that whenever we see ourselves as the solutions to our own problems, as the victors rather than the victims, I think we're just going to make so much more of our lives than regardless of what we're going through.
Right. You're going to love this work, Mardi. You're going to love learning what you're going to learn. And just, we bring a lot of the spiritual aspect to our trainings because there's so much more than we realize. Right. And that whole concept of you are more than you can think. Even that phrase in itself is hard to kind of wrap your head around. Like, what do you mean we're more than we can think? It's because there's too much out there. There's so much limitless possibilities that we can have for our lives that the only person that's blocking it is us, right? And that's why we teach people to just get out of their own way.
Right.
Divorce is, being through it myself, there's a process there, right? And we have to go through that process of the death of the marriage and then the birth of this new identity of, whether it's being a single mom or just being single or being a widow or whatever it is, like whatever that next phase of your life is, we really have to do the work around that. And that's why these tools are so powerful, because we're always about clearing. Let's clear any unresolved emotions. Let's heal the trauma, heal the stuff that our unconscious mind is suppressing in order to keep us safe and alive. And so these tools, I know, you can think of it, they allow people to go from survival to thrival.
Yeah, I love that.
So here's another question. What was one moment or breakthrough where you were able to look back at your journey with gratitude for having gone through it, despite having been maybe difficult at the time to maybe see the gratitude in it? Sometimes when we're in it, we can't see it. And then in the future, then we're like, oh yeah, okay, now I realize what I learned there. And except in the moment, we're sometimes it's blurred. So what was there a moment like that for you, Mardi?
So this is slightly different than the divorce, because I think the divorce, it wasn't a specific moment. It was sort of an accumulation of understanding that sort of snowballed and helped me kind of. And then with my friends saying, snap out of it, that kind of just added that extra little bit of snow that just pushed me over the top. But I think an experience I had like this was my second husband had a massive stroke. And when he was in the hospital, they said he's never going to walk. He's not really going to talk, and he's going to need a full-time caregiver. And I can remember sitting at that time in the hospital and thinking, oh my God, like I've only been married to this guy for 7 years. And I said to them, I said, is it going to be a short time? Because you have these questions, right? Is he going to live for a long time? Is he going to live? And they said, well, no, there's nothing that's going to prevent him from, having a normal life or living a normal lifespan unless some other health issues come up. So I had that. And I remember thinking at the hospital, how the hell am I going to do this? Like, I'm by myself. I'm on the farm. There's nobody else in the house. It's going to be me and him. And how am I going to pick this man up and put him in a wheelchair and help him with all his physical therapy and do everything? And all of a sudden, it was just like this most calming feeling I had come over me. And I thought, look at everything you've done in your life. I had, my mom and dad. I was a caregiver for my mom, not full time. I mean, I was living in the house and I was a teen, so it wasn't like I did it full time, but I still had some caregiver experience. I had worked for almost 6 years in a psychiatric hospital, and I'd done work on the brain injury unit. So I understood, the therapeutic stuff and how to handle that. I had, again, dabbled in some of the NLP stuff. So I was aware of alternate communication methods. And I had worked in a school district, so I had a network of psychologists, psychiatrists, and people I knew that could help me. And of course, some medical professionals that I could turn to as friends. And I can just remember thinking, I have got this covered. And it was such a positive feeling to be able to not go to, oh my, why is this happening to me? Here it is. Yet again, I'm dealing with another crisis with another husband. Oh, woe is me. I just felt like everything that I have done in my life and all the things I've experienced that I thought were just random jobs I was taking or random things that happened, I feel really prepared to tackle this problem. And I think I didn't even I maybe went to Victim Island for maybe a half an hour that day, because I just did. But then I automatically started thinking about, well, I can do this and I know how to do this and I can accomplish this and I can do that. And I think that was for me a breakthrough moment, that it's all about how you think about an issue that creates the reality of what that issue is, has an impact on life and others.
Full body truth bumps there, Mardi.
So profound, Mardi. And one of the things that we bring into our training is the 3 principles, which is mind, consciousness, and thought. And Sydney Banks, who was the discoverer of that, said life is what you think it is. Simple, right? So if you think it's a horror show, guess what? It's a horror show. If you think it's a love story, guess what? It's a love story. And so I love that. And what you said there, Mardi, that, I was there for half an hour. It's okay. It's not like we're never going to be on Victim Island. That's life. Life is about the ups and downs. It's a matter of how quickly can you get off Victim Island, identify that you don't like it there because it doesn't feel good. And you realize that, and you took the action steps and you took the ownership and you took your self-empowerment and you got back over here. And you said, I've got this. And it was literally just a shift in your mindset. So kudos to you, Mardi. Amazing.
Well, and again, it's, I really believe that things, and the older I get, the more I believe this, that we are supposed to learn life lessons. I know Billy and Melissa, you talk about this, but I really have come to truly believe that when we go through an experience, no matter how bad it is, there's a life lesson that we are meant to learn. And if we spend all the time just talking about what a horrible experience that was, you block the ability to, to get that lesson. And, so now when things happen, instead of getting super frustrated and angry and, all bent out of shape, as my dad used to say about things, I just say, what skills do I have that I can tackle this with? And that's my go-to. I'm a kinesthetic person, so I go right to the, what can I do? And sometimes just taking action is all it takes. And then you start feeling more confidence and you move through things faster.
It's that magic question. How is this happening for me?
Right.
Yeah. And once we may not even understand that in the moment. And to your point, though, just start taking action, because action has you moving forward versus being stuck. And then as you move forward, the path opens up, because everything that you did before that you thought were just random jobs were leading you to that moment so that you could support your husband through that health crisis.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that you recognized it so quickly because of all of the training that you've done, recognizing this is a choice and there's a lesson here. What is that? And as you said, going into action, because you're that kinesthetic person. So yeah, kudos to you, because a lot of people would be on Victim Island for a very long time. That's tragic news that you received that day, right? And if you don't have the skill set, it can be extremely overpowering. So looking back with gratitude that you have the skill set.
Right? Exactly. And like I say, such random things, like here I was a school teacher, ended up working in a psych hospital on a brain injury unit. What is the chance that is just a random occurrence?
Right.
When you have to deal with, a spouse who has cognitive impairment due to a stroke. Like, how does it, 25 years later, by the way, it's just, this is not random. Life is not random. I don't believe that at all.
No, it's everything is happening for us, and it's up to us as to whether we see that or not, as you said, if we're open to that. Because when we see that, then we can follow the breadcrumbs to the next step and get to where we're going more easily with less effort. Because that's the whole purpose of learning something, is because we were on the slightly wrong path and we're being redirected. Hey, how about you do it this way? You got to learn something to go this way, but how about you go this way? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. And that's why you were directed from school teacher into the hospital and the brain injury ward, and you followed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing when I look back and think of all the things. It's funny. I had a situation where I was driving. I'm in Texas now, and I was driving across this part of Texas that's like West Texas, and there's nothing there. I mean, you could literally drive for 100 miles. It's kind of like driving in Alaska. You can drive for forever and not see a town or anything. And I drove all the way. I hit a big center, and right then my fan belt broke, and I could coast in to a filling station, a gas station, called a tow truck. It turned out the tow truck driver had a guy who owned a mechanic shop that was just like a couple of miles down the road. So he took there was a hotel right across the street. I could just walk across the street and get a room. And like, I'm thinking, if my car had broken down 2 hours before, I'd have been in the middle of nowhere. I wouldn't have been able to even direct them to where I was in the middle of the night on this highway. And I'm thinking, the lady at the hotel goes, I have never seen anybody so happy that their car broke down. And I'm like, it broke down here on all these wonderful things. Right. So it really is the way you look at a problem.
It is exactly how you look at the problem. And I love that you look at it that way. It's absolutely beautiful. My husband had a health crisis 12 years ago now. And he initially, it just started off as he needed an appendectomy. And then I take him to the hospital and I drive home to pick up the kids from school. And partway home, I get a call that I need to go back to the hospital because it's code blue in the OR. And they wouldn't even tell me what it was. And I'm like, I'm driving the highway. I've got kids to pick up. You need to tell me something. They're like, you need to turn around. So I turn around. They kindly called me back about half an hour later and said, he's in the ICU and you still need to come back. We just wanted to let you know. Anyway, he had an anaphylactic reaction to the paralytic they use. Which they know some people do, and that hospital had never seen it before. So very rare. It's a paralytic called rocuronium that they use all the time. So he's in the ICU. A few days later, they're getting ready to move him out of ICU, so they want him to get up and use the washroom. He does that and immediately after collapses. So they get him straight down to the CT. He's got blood clots. So they get him on warfarin right away. And then I can't remember, there was something else that happened. Anyway, the doctor up here that had sent him down in the first place, I saw her and she's like, oh, poor you. Everything that you're dealing with right now, like 3 things, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, no, I'm saying thank my lucky stars. If you're going to have an anaphylactic reaction, have it in the hospital in the OR. And if you're going to have blood clots, have it in the ICU because the CT scan happened in 5 minutes. So I'm grateful for all of this process because he's alive today versus imagine if he was home and had, the blood clots and I was out somewhere for the day working and came home, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it is how we look at it. And that's when I always say, someone upstairs is looking after us. You were looked after that day with the fan belt. It's like, okay, the fan belt's going to go, but we're going to get you to town first.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's also, you co-create everything for yourself. And so, likely, Mardi, if you were a negative person and you were, grumbling, rah, 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 guess what? The universe is, it's impersonal. It unconditionally will do what you ask it. So if you're saying, wow, grumble, life is horrible, guess what? Okay, life is horrible. Here you go. Well, let's break your fan belt in the middle of nowhere. However, the universe, but people think that it doesn't have anything to do with when your car breaks down. There's more to what happens in our life that people realize. It's not coincidence. Everything happens for a reason, and it happens at divine timing. It happens when it's supposed to happen. And all these 2 incidents you guys are bringing up, it's like that. As much as I say, I wasted 20 years being a cop, absolutely not. I wish I found this work earlier. No, I needed to go through all those things in order for me to be able to do what I'm doing now in the capacity that I'm doing it now. with the experience and the life lessons that I have now. Had you not gone through your own divorce, Mardi, it wouldn't have the catalyst wouldn't have been there for you to be able to do the kind of impact that you're doing now. And so I love, life happens because it's supposed to happen that way. And that's the way you're creating it. And so we always tell people, if you don't like your life, let's rewind the tape. What were you thinking about? What was your thought process? Were you thinking about the horror show, or were you thinking about the love story? And this is what Clear the Screen is all about, right? Let's clear the screen. Let's get the horror show off. And that's just all programming. And we know we can rewire it, right? We can update the programming. And, so I want to, I know you haven't been through the whole program yet, although you do have an idea of what this work does. How do you want to incorporate this into what you're doing now? And do you see a place, I don't know if the answer to this is yes. However, where do you see it going to be really beneficial for your clients in the industry and the niche that you work with?
So yes, I do really plan on implementing this, because I struggle with helping my clients get past a certain point with the NLP tools I have. I mean, like I said, when I did my coaching training, it was actually NLP based. So I have seen the power in that. I'm a big fan of visualization and deep relaxation and breath work. I believe in all of that. I just see the package of tools that I'm going to learn through you and your training. It's going to be so complementary. I think specifically, I'm going to say in two areas. And one is really helping people see beyond the muck and the mire that's dragging them down. Because as you said, divorce is very, very difficult. And some people are dealing with, narcissistic trauma and wounds and dysfunctional families of origin stuff that's coming up, and, repetitive patterns. And I just see this as a beautiful way, like you said, to clear the screen and allow people to see their full potential, so that they're not like, I'm this broken person who can't keep their marriage together, can't keep their spouse satisfied, or whatever the thought is going around in their head. Is to be able to just eliminate that and see themselves as this person with this amazing power and capacity to create that love story and to watch that love story forever, whatever that looks like for them, whether it's finding a new relationship, or whether it's being, I call it spectacularly single, or whether it is starting a new job or an entrepreneurship. But having that inner capacity to say, I can do this and I believe in myself. So that's the one side. And I think that's something I will use with every one of my clients. The second thing I want to work with my clients on is specifically around some of the anxiety stuff that comes up during the divorce. I work with most women, but I do work with some men. And it's interestingly, they both have the same issue. They just show it in different ways. Anxiety about talking to attorneys, about talking to financial people. That freaks most people out, is having to actually have your budget and your, how you've managed your money micro dissected and be criticized by the opposing counsel and everything else as things go through the divorce. So I think helping people deal with anxiety at that time, and then helping people really be able to emotionally regulate during mediation, litigation, depositions. There's a bunch of stuff that comes up that's pretty anxiety provoking in a lot of the more complicated, higher conflict types of divorces. So just really being able to support my clients so that they're in the best emotional state, so that when they go into those processes, they're not overwhelmed. They don't shut down. They're able to listen and be fully clear and share the information that needs to be shared, rather than feeling so judged or feeling like they're not worthy of speaking up for themselves. So that's the two areas I really see using this. But I know in my own personal life, I'm going to use it a lot too. So
absolutely. We always got to start with self. And yeah, what you just described is exactly what timeline therapy is going to do, right? Allow people to deal with the self-worth and self-limiting beliefs. And then, clear the screen is literally teaching people how to manage their anxiety through one of the future timeline therapy techniques that we use for the future, called the anxiety clearing exercise. And that's going to be so powerful, not just for ourselves, for other people. Because really, anxiety is just, as we say, it's a warning from the unconscious mind to say, hey, stop thinking about what you don't want. Start thinking about what you do want.
Right.
That's great. I love that you already have a plan.
So wonderful, Mardi. You're going to be one of the most sought after divorce coaches in the world, because you will have all of the tools to allow this to be gentle for your client and allow it to feel easy instead of hard, right? Billy's got the easy button on her desk. And when we tap into these tools, we are doing things the easy way. And that's what people want, right? It's already, emotionally draining enough. Let's make it as easy as possible. And that's what these tools are going to allow you to do. So I love that. And I would also like to ask you, just based on where you're at in your life today, what does amplify your impact mean, and how do you embody that every day already?
I believe really that amplify your impact to me means that genuinely being authentic with people and sharing information, sharing techniques, sharing messages that help everybody. Not like, for me, it's not just about my clients. It's about, if I'm talking to somebody, if I run into somebody at the grocery store, or if I'm talking to somebody wherever it may be, and they talk about going through a challenge or a problem, it's to leave them with some positivity and to leave them in a place where they walk away and feel like, wow, that was a positive experience. And I think if we all just did that, if we all amplified that in our lives, especially now, because things are so, polarized, black and white, there's no gray area, there's no empathy, there's no willingness to even try to comprehend what somebody else is saying if it's not your perspective. Right. I think if everybody that has the tools starts using them on themselves, like Billy said first, but then being able to gently and kindly use them with others who are open to it, I can just see how this, it's just like a mountain of positivity that just starts happening for everybody. And that's what I really want to do, is I want to make this something that's so much a part of me that I just use it all the time with everybody that I interact with.
Love that. And the massive ripple effect that will have. And that's our mission too, to, get this out to the world so people know that they do have choices and there are more than one ways to heal. And there's so much programming out there. You get sick, you go to the doctor, they'll fix you. We're not broken. We don't need fixing, and we don't need a Band-Aid to cover up the problem. We need to understand the problem so we can resolve the problem, right?
Right.
And, if you're in a car accident, the first place I'm going if I've got injuries is the medical system, because it's excellent with acute care. It's just it doesn't recognize the fact that our emotional bodies need healing, our mental bodies need healing, and it just looks at one aspect of the physical body, and it's not enough. And as we take this work out into the world, people will realize that there are so many ways to heal and how powerful the tools are when we tap into the unconscious mind, which is our easy button. So I love how much you love this already, how much you've been enjoying the trainings thus far. And we're so excited to see where you take this upon completion, because
well, thank you.
Massive impact. So I love that.
And I've already got the books that you all recommended, and I've been reading through them, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to tell everybody to read this book. The Pransky book on mental health.
The Secret to Mental Health. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've already bought it for my nieces, my sister, like everybody.
It's such simple information. It's such a simple concept. And, when we first learned this, it was funny how this, again, all synchronicities, nothing happens by coincidence, how we connected with this mentor and he connected us to this work. And it was so simple that we realized this is why NLP came. This is why timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, because it almost is the stepping stones to the simplicity of life is exactly what you want it to be when you think it is that way. And it really just comes down to your thought process. And when we think about, especially during times like divorce, which is a very difficult time, especially when there's children involved and, all the lawyers. And if you can stay focused on what is the purpose here and how is this happening for me, and see past it, like you said, I love that you said that, Marty, that, what can you see life beyond it, instead of just with those glasses and the blinders on that this is all my life is right now, and to see beyond it, and then be able to now take the lessons that you're learning, because all your clients need to understand that you're going through this for a reason as well. Right? You're going through this so that, who knows, maybe this is something that you will then inspire other women to go through in a more gentle way, because it doesn't have to be, horrible. Because when you hear this all the time, like, oh, I'm going through a divorce. Ooh, that must be tough, right? It's just the programming that says, oh, must be tough. It's because we've programmed it that way, right? We can deprogram it so that divorce doesn't have to be difficult. It could just be mutual. And now, even I call him the husband, we've always had a very amicable relationship when it comes to the kids, for the sake of the kids. And, I've always put my stuff aside and said, you know what, my opinion of the husband is my opinion. It's not my children's opinion, and nor do I want it to be their opinion. And if we could just, one of the presuppositions that we teach in NLP, which I'm sure you've heard of, Marty, is that everybody's doing the best they can with the resources they have in the moment. And unfortunately, a lot of the people in the world are just not very well resourced. And it's our job to have that compassion and offer those resources. And these tools are resources for people. And so I love that you're bringing this into your tool belt. And we're so excited for you to learn it. And again, to share it with other people and let them know that there is a gentler way. There is an easy button for life. Right? It doesn't have to be hard. If it's hard, you're doing it wrong.
And so, Marty, for the listeners here, if they're listening to this, they are going through divorce themselves, know people that are, and know that they need your help. What is the best way for people to get hold of you?
Probably the best way is through my website. It's www.divorcecoach4, that's the number 4, women.com. And I do also have another website called www.poscs.com. That stands for Positive Communication Systems. And that's got the divorce coaching information for men. So either one will get you to me. Both are the, just 2 different websites, but either one. And if anybody is interested, they can certainly contact me. I'd be happy. I do a divorce strategy planning session. It takes about 45 minutes, and that's what it is. We'll just focus on one aspect of your divorce and get you out of there with an action plan at the end.
Love that. Thank you very much. We will have all of that in the show notes. So thank you so much for coming here today, for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, sharing your heart. Absolutely loved this interview with you. And thank you to our audience for tuning in each and every week and listening to these stories, being inspired, being uplifted, and knowing and learning about the power of your thoughts and your mind and how it's a choice. You can shift your life. And as my favorite quote is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
I love that. And yeah, your life is a horror show. Follow us and learn how to clear the screen and put up the love story, because really it can happen at the flick of a switch. It really can be that easy. So thank you, Marty. So excited for all that you are going to do in the world. And thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks, Melissa.
If you want to go deeper, scan the QR code, check out our Light Circle membership. This is a community where it's going to serve you and uplift you and empower you, because when you end your anxiety, that's where your abundance begins. And when you can amplify you, then you can impact others.
Hi, this is Michelle Abraham from the High Vibe Podcast Network. We are honored to have Billy and Melissa's show clear the screen on our network. For more amazing shows just like theirs, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com.